How are you? I feel like I'm just like being like chill here. Sorry if you were waiting to get online and there was a stream that was set up that was there by accident. So if you have been hanging out in my live chats this afternoon, I apologize. I had a zillion things going on at the same time. All right, welcome. Welcome back for round two. We just finished an amazing stream about Mama June. Mama and Her Life has got all of you guys captivated and is typically some of the most viewed content on this channel. Today we're going to talk about Taylor Swift. So I've never been a humongous fan of hers. Well, I lie. I love her music. And recently in the last few years have been loving her outspokenness. Taylor Swift shot to fame when she was a teenager. She was like the teen sensation, accomplished musician that wrote her own music, started in the country music world, and has catapulted herself into international superstardom and is by far one of the largest, most well-known female singers of her time, is the highest paid star. According to, I believe, Forbes last year, this woman rakes it in. And she has been in the middle of a big dispute with her former record label past few years. She left her record label and then her former manager or former somebody purchased all of her music underneath her for like $230 million. And because she no longer owns her catalog of music, she has to get permission to play it, which has created a lot of issues. She's utilized her fan base to try to encourage this person named Scooter to give her catalog back or to work with her to get her catalog back. It created such a big frenzy that they weren't sure that she would be able to perform when she was receiving a icon award at the American Music Awards. They didn't know if she would be able to perform her old music because there was a stipulation in the way that it was purchased by them that you couldn't live broadcast her music. Anyway, everything finally went out. They were able to do it, but she's been very outspoken about that. Other things she's been outspoken about in the recent years is politics, something that she had never done before. She's been advocating and supporting women's a voice for women who have gone through different inappropriate things with men or other women that do them to them, as well as speaking out against Donald Trump and in support of the LGBTQ plus world. That wasn't always the case though, right? She was the good girl, Miss American, like girl next door. That's how they packaged her. And she has a brand new documentary coming out on Netflix, which will be dropping on the 31st. So it actually debuted last night at the Sundance Film Festival, and it's getting mixed reviews. I'd say most of the reviews I've read have been positive. Some outlets like The Guardian are calling it propaganda, where others are just calling it more carefully manufactured content with just enough realness and rawness for you to get a peek into her life. But there will be some aspects of Miss Americana, which will debut on January 31st on Netflix. Items that will not be included will be her current love life with her boyfriend of 3 years, actor Joe Alwyn. They will not really talk about her participation in the movie Cats, and they will not talk about her current battle with her music issues. And they briefly touch on her mother, but not very much. Her mother has recently been re-diagnosed with cancer. It's been found in her brain. And with that current situation for Taylor, it means that she's going to be taking a step back to focus on her mother's health because apparently her mother is not doing well because of the effects of the tumors in her brain. She had previously gone into remission after battling breast cancer. But there will be some things So according to multiple like New York Times, everyone says there's some nuggets in this thing that will make us want to watch. Now the trailer of it is a 2-minute that dropped today. Taylor actually has it front and center on her Instagram, and it talks about her no longer being muzzled, having to always be the good girl, having record labels and industry insiders and industry people always telling her to, good girls don't speak their opinions. They say thank you and please, and they are polite. They don't forcefully tell people how they feel about things. And so she says that those early days of her life really formed how she acted and what she did because she had an eagerness to please. But what is revealed is that she based her whole belief system. So apparently in this, there's going to be a few things. She's going to talk about Kanye West. She's going to talk about what happened in 2009 and when he bamboozled her on the stage and said that Beyonce should have won, and the impact of that on her. She was still very young at that time. And that was one of the first times she heard boos in the audience and how that impacted her and affected her. And then the ongoing feud that happened over the subsequent years with Kanye and with Kim. They will also be talking about how she didn't get any nominations for her recent 2017 album. So, and there's a quote from that a quote from the documentary says, when people fall out of love with you, there's nothing you can do to make them change their minds. So she had been left out of all of the major categories of the Grammys for her last album. But the biggest thing that's going to be revealed in this is that Taylor has battled for years. Maybe a lot of you have known this, maybe you don't, but she has conquered an eating disorder. She gets real about why she was so real thin. So this is actually the first time she's ever talked about it, which is humongous. And she actually had an interview that was published this morning with Variety that goes a little bit more in depth into it, but in the movie, she talks about how, according to Variety and all these other outlets, how she believed that. So these are the quotes from the film. I would have defended it to anyone who said, I'm concerned about you. I don't think you know you're doing that when you're doing it gradually. There's always some standard of beauty that you're not meeting because if you're thin enough, then you don't have the ass that everyone wants. But if you have enough weight on you to have an ass, then your stomach isn't flat enough. It's just so effing impossible. She talks about how she overcame her ED, along with how she no longer looks at photos of herself. So she says that if she has an urge to judge her body harshly, she won't do it, and she practices positive self-talk. But she said, nope, we don't do that anymore. We do not do that anymore because it's better to think you look fat than to look sick. And she even talks about how when she was performing, she didn't even have the stamina to get through her performances. And if you remember, she was a stick. I mean, she had nothing. She looked like a skeleton. And she said, I thought I was supposed to feel like I was going to pass out at the end of the show or in the middle of it. Now I realize, no, if you eat food and have energy and get stronger, you can do all of these shows. If ever faced with questions, about how thin she was, she said she would typically say that she did a lot of exercise. And she said, and I did exercise a lot, but I also wasn't eating. And so when Variety actually interviewed her, she went in deeper than what's actually in the documentary. And this is a quote from the Variety, which I think is interesting. She said, I remember how when I was 18, that was the first time I was on the cover of a magazine. And the headline was like, pregnant at 18. And it was because I had worn something that made my lower stomach look not flat. So I just registered that as a punishment. And then I'd walk into a photo shoot and be in the dressing room, and somebody who worked in the magazine would say, "Oh, wow, this is so amazing that you can fit into the sample sizes. Usually we have to make alterations to the dresses, but we can take them right off the runway and put them on you." And I looked at that as a pat on the head. You register that enough times and you just start to accommodate everything towards praise and punishment, including your own body. And in terms of why she's going to open up about it on this in the documentary, she said, "I think I never really wanted to talk about that before, and I'm pretty uncomfortable talking about it now. But in the context of every other thing that I was doing or not doing in my life, I think it makes sense to have it in the film." And most interestingly, she says she doesn't feel like she's an advocate at all. In fact, she says that she looks up to my favorite, Jameela Jamil. She says, "I love people like the actress advocate, Jameela Jamil, because she says things in a really articulate way. The way she speaks about body image, it's almost like she speaks in a hook. If you read her quotes about women and body image and aging and the way that women are treated in our industry and portrayed in the media, I swear, the way she speaks, it's like lyrics, and it gets stuck in my head and it calms me down. Because women are held to such a ridiculous standard of beauty. We're seeing so much on social media that makes us feel like we are less than, or we're not what we should be, and that you kind of need a mantra to repeat in your head when you start to have harmful or unhealthy thoughts." So she's one of the people who, when I read what she says, it sticks with me and it helps me. That's awesome, because that's absolutely what her goal is. I know that she is doing a humongous, like Jameela, she has this like whole Instagram page called I Am, and it's like all the things that women are, not like their size. It all started with like a photo she saw. It's not called I Am, it's called something. I'll have to find it. I'll link it when I find it. It's a whole page, and it's this whole movement, and it's like all the things that women are, because it started as she saw a photo of the Kardashians with all of their weights on it. And she just thought, like, that's what the women, like, that's what a woman is, like, thought of in the media, is just how much she weighs. So she posts photos of people, whatever size they are, whoever they are, and all the things that they love about them and all the things that they don't love. And it's just a way for people to share who they are outside of their weight. And I love it. I actually follow that page. Other topics. So it's interesting how the early days in the media and the constant scrutiny on her caused her to have an eating disorder, but not surprising. She also will touch on her court battle over a DJ that groped her, which involved a court case where she actually took the DJ to civil court for $1, and she won. And she said, I was unspeakably and unchangeably different after that assault trial. No man or organization or my family will ever understand what that was like." And the DJ was accused of groping her bare bottom during a photo shoot, like slipping his hand under her skirt. Yeah. Despite winning the case, she said that she never really felt a sense of victory. She said, because the process is so dehumanizing. What happens when you get the R word, and it's your word against his. So she said it was this case that actually propelled her into being more of an advocate and speaking out politically. And her biggest regret, she talks about in this documentary, not speaking out against Donald Trump in the 2016 elections. And she will be not supporting him in the upcoming 2020 elections. And apparently in the documentary, she goes through her first political tweets, also takes her on a journey of getting into arguments with her father about speaking out politically and also endorsing Democratic candidates. Yay, Taylor. And then she also talks about, in this documentary, wanting to be a good girl and having the need for external praise from everyone was her whole identity, that she didn't even know how to like herself, which likely is part of the reason she ended up with the ED. She said, "I'm wanting to be a good girl. It was all I wrote about. It was all I wanted. it was the complete and total belief system I subscribed to as a kid. She lived for pats on the head. Any praise that she was doing a good job on her homework or her songwriting, she only found fulfillment through external approval. She wanted to be the person who everyone else wanted to be. And that's why when she started receiving public criticism, like she's annoying, she has too many boyfriends, she's only friends with models, it was really difficult for her to overcome, because when people decided I was wicked and evil and conniving and not a good person, that was the one that I couldn't really bounce back from. And because my whole life has centered around being a good girl. Wow. And the funniest thing that'll be revealed in this, Taylor didn't eat a burrito until she was 26 years old. Seriously? Taylor, you didn't eat a burrito until you were 26? That's crazy talk. I love burritos. I think I might have one for dinner. And she is not ready for children. Apparently, her boyfriend it will not be seen in this documentary, though she's been with him for 3 years. She talks in this documentary about visiting a friend who had recently had a child, and who talked about how an infant's life is like feeding, sleeping, pooping, like sleeping, eating, pooping, sleeping, eating, pooping, basically. I mean, that's what newborns are. And she was just like not interested in that. So she just turned 30 years old, and no, despite the fact that she has hit her 4th decade on the planet, she is not ready for children. Hey, good for you, Taylor. Nobody needs to have kids unless they're ready. So I am actually, the biggest thing in the trailer was that her muzzle is off, right? So she's finally using her voice. So things that make me want to watch it are that she's going to talk about the self-body stuff. I'm also interested to hear about how, growing up in the limelight and how that affected her self-esteem, her self-worth, how that affected her image. I'm going to say, like, before she was speaking out politically and saying any of these things, I didn't like her. I thought she was a mean girl. She surrounded herself with all of these like girls that were super skinny, and they were like kind of the bratty girls, the mean girls. That's kind of the reputation they had. So it's nice to see a more vulnerable Taylor, but it's also sad that like really big things that are going on with her are not included, like her family. And that was sort of the criticism, is that she used this documentary filmmaker who is noted to hit really hard content, and that there's lots of things that this person just sort of glossed over because it seems like it's a brand propaganda piece. So I guess you have to have a mix of, I'm going to give you a little bit, but not my whole self, which is fair. But at the same time, you're going to get one piece about the ED that you never knew before. So this will drop next week on January 31st. There's actually a ton of reviews. It's called Miss Americana. You can check out the trailer on Taylor's Instagram. You can also type in Miss Americana you can also check out the trailer on her YouTube channel, Taylor Swift. It's up right now. It's like 2 minutes long. See if you want to watch it. It will be on Netflix and select theaters. It debuted last night, and overwhelmingly good reviews for it, with just, anytime there's these music ones, there's things missing. Although people were kind of critical of Lady Gaga's 5'2", and I loved it. I was like, this is the best thing ever, because I love Lady Gaga. So if you're already a fan, it'll probably help you more. It might not answer questions if you already hate her. So, it's one of those. So are you surprised by the revelations? Be mindful of the words you use. Certain words will trigger the bots, just so you know. And I will be back in a few minutes with some more content. If you like this type of content and want more of it, let me know in the comments below. I know it is not typical and it will not be as widely viewed, but I like to try to increase what we offer here so there's less redundancy. All right, you guys, I'll be back in a little while. Bye.